Welcome to the NWI.com Political Roundtable for Thursday, November 17th. I'm Robert Blaszkiewicz, Assistant Managing Editor of The Times. Joined with me today, Doug Ross, Editorial Page Editor of The Times, and Times columnist Mark Kiesling.
Robert.
Bringing you the latest developments and something that we were talking about a lot this past year. I think we're going to be talking about it a lot next year, is the right to work issue. And the most recent developments has been the legislative committee that studied the issue. A Republican majority on that committee recommended that the legislature go forward and recommended they pass right to work legislation in the next session. The Democrats made the unusual move of basically releasing a dissenting minority opinion on that. So it set up that standoff that, this is the issue that kind of really spurred the walkout last year. And we're going to see, leading up to Organization Day next week, we're going to see some protests, aren't we, Doug?
Oh, absolutely. I got a call even today from somebody wanting to see what he could do prior to going down to Indianapolis Tuesday.
Is this going to be Occupy Indianapolis?
Well, the Occupy people are being decamped, actually, in Indy.
Well, we move them out and move these people.
Yeah, you got to make room for. They're actually even talking, ironically, about kicking out the legislators for the week around the Super Bowl, so there won't be any legislative action then because they need the hotel space. For Super Bowl.
Is there ever any legislative action around the Super Bowl?
Well, I guess it depends. But with Indianapolis hosting it, there's going to be a lot of legislative inaction. Anyway.
Inaction as far as official capacity.
Yeah, it's inaction.
But I'll bet there's going to be a lot of action, unofficially.
Right. And last year what happened with the right to work issue is it kind of blew up like a sudden summer storm, and was a boon to Urbana, Illinois tourism, because that's where almost all the Democrats went. And I say almost because Chet Dobus was somebody who didn't go, but almost all the Democrats in Northwest Indiana, and
and as we all know, Illinois does need the money, so. Why, Indiana's in the black, so why not feed that?
Well, there's an Urbana, Indiana, but I don't think there are any hotels there.
There is an Urbana, Indiana. I didn't know that.
Well, you mentioned Chet Dobus, and he figured, let's talk about the legislative races coming up in 2012.
Absolutely.
He figures into some interesting developments.
He does. House District 19, his district, basically got Vernon Smith put into it. With redistricting, there were
Explain Vernon Smith, please, to the viewers.
Okay, the state rep from Gary. Democrat, former school principal who is very heavy into education issues.
Wears alligator shoes.
And so he's
he does.
Well, beats standing on alligators, I guess.
Well, I guess.
But
never stood on an alligator myself. But.
I'll take a pass on that opportunity. Thank you. The question is, which one would blink? Who would win in a primary in a head-to-head contest? Now that they're both in the same district, and Chet Dobus apparently has moved to Briar Ridge. Bought a condo there, listed it, switched his, I saw the sales disclosure form yesterday, so he switched his primary residence to Briar Ridge, which puts him in the new 15th district, which is an open district. No incumbent currently in that district. Well, except for Chet having moved there. But
Chet is not truly an incumbent in that district.
Right. So that should be interesting. There's a good question. That's pretty much all of St. John Township. I mean, there's a portion of it lopped off, but that's basically the district. So I don't know. That seems like it could just as easily go Republican as it could Democratic to me. But
it could, but it depends on who the candidate is.
It does. There's a lot of jockeying for a position going to be happening in the next month or two. So.
What about? Let's talk. Let's throw it out there. What about Hank Adams?
Well, I talked to him about it. yesterday, I guess it was.
Hank
And,
Adams, the Lake
the
County
Lake County
Assessor.
Assessor, he was,
Yeah.
the
you
first
know,
Republican elected to countywide office in quite a while.
since what, the Depression or
Yeah.
thereabouts?
Well, I think there was a countywide office. I was told that there was a countywide Republican elected in the 1950s. So.
Okay, well, in any case, decades.
A long time.
And so Hank said, well, he would probably stand a pretty good chance of you know, surviving the primary, certainly, and
Well, I think so, yeah.
and the election. The question is, he was elected to the assessor's office, and you know, he's done so much to try to clean up things there that there's still quite a bit to be done there. He's only been in office since January, so does he? The question, you know, he has to answer is, do I continue, you know, trying to straighten up the office I was elected for, or do I try for a statewide office?
No, when I talked, the last time I talked to Hank, he was, you know, he knew that his election as a countywide Republican was a bit of a fluke because his opponent had been charged with several felonies, and
That would tend to make a difference.
even in Lake County, that tends to be a little bit of baggage. So you know, he knew that they were going to come after him next time. So he wasn't really keen on running for assessor again. So you know, I kind of wouldn't be surprised to see him run, you know, for the state office. And yet,
But would he run this year,
yet-
or would he
yet-
run in 2 years?
Yet there's that whole, you know, and I kind of hate to call this, and I kind of don't hate to call it this. There's kind of the whole Philpott factor. I mean, you know, pick an office you want and stay with it. Don't run for sheriff and coroner and clerk, ever, you know, at this, you know.
Well, you know, and that came into play in the Hammond mayoral election just last
Well,
week.
yeah,
I mean, you know, George Janik, fresh member of the school board in Hammond, and defeated.
Well, I think that
soundly.
I think that hurt Janet quite a bit. He was just elected to the school board last year, and turns around and wants to be mayor. And you know, I just think people are tired of people office jobs.
Well, I think incumbency and performance do matter, and I think it's not outside the realm of possibility that he could get reelected.
Now who?
That Hank
about
Adams
Hank
could get
Adams,
reelected.
Oh, well,
We're taking the conversation back about 4 minutes.
yeah. Except the problem is in Lake County, as you well know, that a lot of people just tend to vote straight Democratic. So, depending on how well he does or how well he campaigns, he could possibly be reelected. But I think realistically, and even Hank realizes this, that this is county-wide, it's a Democratic county.
Absolutely.
When he goes back into his home district, the St. John Township district, he's going to have a built-in power base that he doesn't even have to really work hard at pumping up.
Yeah, I'm you know, when we mentioned the Hammond mayoral race, that jogged my memory, and I'll get to that in a moment. But there was that famous quote the state representative Mara Candelaria Reardon made about State Senator Mike Delph, who's introduced a number of proposals on immigration issues, and Mara called him a rabid dog when it comes to immigration issues, and Mara, of course, is pretty much by herself the Hispanic caucus in the state house.
She will have a challenger, it looks like. At least, well, there's a Republican candidate who is declared
Right.
Munster attorney Bill Fine.
Right.
So he may be facing her.
He may be facing her. Mike Delph is taking umbrage to the mad dog remark. I talked to him for probably an hour and a half the other day about a number of issues, but about that as well. And he was saying, he's from Indianapolis area. He said, "Do you people up here do your politicians use subhuman terms like that?" And I
Only another politician.
I had to look
Are,
at
of
him and
course,
say,
subhuman.
well, you do realize that Hammond Mayor Tom McDermott Jr. did call Marion County Republicans a bunch of perverts, most famously on the radio. So there you go. Maybe it's a good shot at some of the rhetoric we use up here.
That's all the time we have this week. Thanks, Doug and Mark. You wanted to give a shout out?
I want to give a little shout out to my mom on her 85th birthday.
Yeah,
and Robert.
And me. I'll give a shout out to my wife on her birthday. I won't say how old she is, but
she's not 85.
She's not 85.
I will tell you that.
Happy birthday to them, and we'll see you next week with another political roundtable.
Thank you, Robert.